He thought he'd found true love, but one simple mistake changed everything. A woman showed her true worth in the face of adversity, and the heartbreak was inevitable. An unexpected test revealed feelings that money could never buy. In the end, the greatest loss turned into the most unexpected victory. Before you dive into this story of betrayal, new beginnings, and true love, don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories. With his heart racing and palms sweating, he planned every detail of the evening. The ring he chose sparkled under the soft light of the restaurant, a jewel that symbolized eternal promises. When he asked if she wanted to marry him, she hesitated, only to ask, "Is it gold? Is it very expensive?" Upon hearing that it was, her smile lit up her face and she accepted without thinking twice, declaring eternal love. However, the slip happened minutes later. His credit card was declined when it came time to pay for dinner. Visibly embarrassed, she moved away, refusing to split the bill, claiming that women never pay for meals. Instead of helping him, she preferred to retreat to the car, leaving him to resolve the situation alone. It was then that a young waitress, witnessing the scene, discreetly settled the bill on behalf of the restaurant, so that he wouldn't carry that moment as a bad memory. Nathan Reynolds, 32 years old, a real estate entrepreneur, was the type of man who believed in true love. The son of separated parents, he grew up with the promise that one day he would find someone who would love him unconditionally. He met Victoria Parker at a charity event a year ago, and since then had dived headfirst into the relationship. She was stunning, blonde hair, piercing green eyes, and a smile that lit up any room. With a degree in public relations, Victoria worked organizing events for New York's high society and had contacts in all the important social circles. The marriage proposal at the Ocean Star restaurant, the most exclusive in the city, should have been perfect. Nathan had reserved the best table with a view of the bay and ordered her favorite dish specially prepared by the renowned chef. Everything was going as planned until the embarrassing moment when his card was declined. "There must be some mistake," Nathan muttered, embarrassed, as the restaurant manager stared at him with a mixture of pity and impatience. "Victoria, could you help me?" he asked, turning to his newly proclaimed fiancée. "Nathan, this is very embarrassing," she replied, getting up abruptly. "You bring me to a place like this and you can't pay. I'll wait in the car." With his face burning with shame, Nathan tried to contact his bank manager, but it was already past 10 p.m. That's when Emma, the young waitress with a sincere smile and deep brown eyes, approached discreetly. "Sir, the restaurant would like to offer dinner as a gift for your engagement," she said, with a soft voice that contrasted with the tense atmosphere. "I can't accept," Nathan began. "Please, I insist. Sometimes the most special moments deserve a gesture of kindness." Those sincere eyes offered more than a way out of an embarrassing situation. They offered understanding when Victoria had only shown judgment. The next day, Nathan discovered the reason for the card rejection. A suspicious attempt at an international transfer had temporarily blocked his accounts. Having resolved the problem, he tried to thank the restaurant, but no one confirmed the courtesy mentioned by Emma. Intrigued, Nathan returned to the establishment looking for the waitress, only to discover that she was off duty. Meanwhile, Victoria had already posted photos of the engagement ring on social media, showing off the jewel to her friends with captions about eternal love and true happiness. No mention of the embarrassing incident. A week after the marriage proposal, Nathan's world fell apart. A call from his company's accountant arrived like a hurricane on a clear day. "Nathan, we need to talk urgently. The company has serious problems." When he arrived at the office, the news was devastating. Marcus, his partner and childhood friend, had embezzled an astronomical amount from the company's funds. Not only that, but he had signed loans in the company's name, leaving a trail of impossible debts to pay. "How could he do this?" asked Nathan, stunned, as he looked at the documents proving the fraud. "He had been planning this for months, Nathan," explained the accountant, pointing to several small transfers that had gone unnoticed. "And there's more. He forged your signature on several contracts, compromising your personal assets. The scam had been meticulously planned. Marcus had fled the country the day before, taking with him more than $2 million and leaving a debt of almost $250,000 in Nathan's name. The company's accounts were blocked, and Nathan's personal assets entered an investigation process. "How long do we have before everything comes to light?" asked Nathan, trying to maintain his composure. "Days, at most. Creditors are already calling. If we can't quickly prove it was fraud, you could even face legal problems." With a heavy heart, Nathan drove to the luxurious apartment where Victoria lived. He needed to tell his fiancée the truth. If there was someone he could count on in this difficult moment, it would be her, he thought. Victoria's apartment was in a high-end condominium in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Nathan passed through security, already known to the doorman, and went straight up to the penthouse. When he rang the doorbell, he heard female laughter from the other side of the door. Victoria opened it, surprised to see him without prior notice. Inside the apartment, 3 of her closest friends were sitting on the white sofa, champagne glasses in hand, admiring the engagement ring that Victoria was displaying like a trophy. "Nathan, I didn't know you were coming," she said, giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. "We're celebrating the engagement. Do you want to join us?" "We need to talk in private," he replied, with a tone of urgency that Victoria seemed not to notice. "Now? I'm with my friends." "It's important, Victoria, very important." Reluctantly, she excused herself to her friends and took Nathan to the bedroom. The environment was impeccably decorated, with touches of gold and pastel pink, reflecting the meticulous personality and preference for luxury of the owner. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost," she commented, more irritated than concerned. "I'm ruined, Victoria. Marcus betrayed me. He diverted millions from the company and fled the country. I'm drowning in debt and may even face legal problems." The silence that followed was more painful than any word. Victoria stood motionless, as if processing not Nathan's personal tragedy, but the implications for her own life. "What do you mean? Ruined?" she finally asked with a cold voice. "Don't you have reserves, insurance? How could you let this happen?" "Victoria, I trusted him. He was my childhood friend. And now? What will happen to the company? To our wedding?" Her eyes fixed on her own ring, as if afraid of losing it. "I'll have to sell almost everything to pay the debts, maybe even your car," Nathan referred to. The convertible Mercedes he had given her on their dating anniversary. "My car?" Her voice rose an octave. "You're joking, right? You gave me that car, it's mine, you can't just take it back." "Victoria, I'm talking about my life falling apart. I could lose everything, including my freedom. And I will lose my lifestyle." "Nathan, what will my friends think? How will I organize a worthy wedding without money? Have you thought about that?" The expression on her face gradually changed from shock to indignation, as if she were the real victim of the situation. Nathan felt a pang in his chest, more painful than Marcus's betrayal. "We need to postpone the wedding," he continued, ignoring her reaction. "At least until I resolve this situation." "Postpone." Victoria walked to the vanity and began nervously fiddling with her imported perfumes. "Do you have any idea of the ridicule I'll suffer?" "It's temporary, Victoria. I need your support now." "Support?" She turned, her green eyes shining with tears that Nathan didn't know if they were from anger or sadness. "I didn't sign up for this, Nathan. I don't deserve to go through this humiliation." At that moment, her cell phone rang. Victoria looked at the screen and quickly silenced the call, but not before Nathan saw the name Jack flashing. The same Jack who owned an imported car dealership and who always openly flirted with Victoria at social events. "It's him, isn't it?" asked Nathan, feeling a growing emptiness in his stomach. "Don't be ridiculous, it's just work," she defended herself, putting the phone in her pocket. "Victoria, I need to know. Are you with me, or for what I can give you?" The question hung in the air like a sentence. Victoria stared at Nathan for long seconds before answering with a coldness he had never seen. "Do you really want me to answer that?" In that instant, Nathan understood. The love he believed he had found was an illusion. The woman in front of him loved the lifestyle he provided, not the man behind the expensive gifts and exclusive dinners. "I want you to come back when you've solved your problems," Victoria finally said, taking the ring off her finger and placing it on the table. "I can't deal with this right now. I have my reputation to uphold." Nathan took the ring, that symbol of what he believed to be eternal love, and felt its insignificant weight in the face of the revelation he had just had. As he left the apartment, he passed the group of friends who pretended not to hear the argument, but whose looks of pity and judgment followed him to the door. In the elevator, alone, Nathan allowed himself to cry for the first time. Not for the material losses, but for the brutal discovery that the love he valued so much was just a transaction for Victoria. While descending to the ground floor, his cell phone vibrated with a message. It was from the Ocean Star restaurant, thanking him for his visit the previous week and informing him that an assistant manager position had opened up, in case he knew, someone interested. The contact for more information was Emma Taylor, now identified as the service supervisor. Nathan kept his phone, not knowing that this seemingly casual message would be the first step toward a complete turnaround in his life. In the parking lot, he looked at his luxury car, probably the last asset that would remain after the liquidation of his assets. As he started it, the rain began to fall, as if the sky shared his sadness. On the other side of the city, Emma kept her phone after sending the message to Nathan. Her small apartment was simple but cozy. On the kitchen table, a brown envelope contained documents that would reveal much more about Nathan Reynolds' life than he himself knew. Beside the envelope, a photo showed Emma next to a middle-aged man who wore the federal police uniform. "Phase 1 completed," she murmured to herself as she watched the rain through the window. "Now let's see what you're really made of, Nathan Reynolds." A few days later, the news spread like wildfire. He had lost everything. His partner, whom he trusted blindly, had betrayed him, diverting all the company's assets and leaving him mired in a debt of more than $250,000. Now bankruptcy was real, and the threat of prison too. Desperate, he sought support from his fiancée. He suggested selling the luxury car to settle part of the debt. But she, cold as marble, categorically refused. The car was hers by sentimental right. She wouldn't give up anything. She made it clear she wouldn't marry a poor man. Without mercy, she turned her back, abandoning him when he needed her most. Nathan watched the rain through the window of his almost empty apartment. The main furniture had already been sold to cover the first installments of the debts. The Italian leather sofa that Victoria loved so much, the climate-controlled wine cellar, the works of art acquired at exclusive auctions. Everything was gone in less than a week. Only the essentials remained: a bed, a simple sofa, and some household utensils. His cell phone rang for the 10th time that day. It was Jack, the same man whose name had appeared on Victoria's cell phone. Nathan hesitated before answering. "Reynolds, we need to talk," Jack's deep voice sounded from the other end of the line. "About what exactly?" replied Nathan, holding back the anger he felt. "About Victoria's car. She contacted me for an appraisal. Said you're trying to take it back." Nathan took a deep breath before responding. "That car is in my name, Jack. I need to sell it to pay debts." "Look, I understand your situation, but you gave the car to her. You can't just change your mind. Because you're broke." The word broke hit Nathan like a punch to the stomach. That's how they saw him now, a broken man without value. "Come to the dealership tomorrow," continued Jack. "We can reach an agreement that satisfies everyone." As he hung up, Nathan felt the weight of humiliation. Not only had he lost almost everything he had built, but now he had to negotiate with the man who was clearly eyeing his ex-fiancée. Perhaps they were already together, he thought, feeling his stomach turn. The doorbell rang, interrupting his dark thoughts. Upon opening the door, he found his lawyer, David Mitchell, with a folder full of documents under his arm. "I got a longer deadline with the creditors," said David, entering the apartment and observing the empty space with an understanding look. "But we need more money to pay the lawyers who are analyzing the evidence against Marcus. I've already sold almost everything, David. What more can I do?" "You still have your ex's car, right? And this apartment." "I can't sell the apartment." Now the market is down and it would be a certain loss. David sat on the worn-out sofa and opened his folder. Nathan, I'll be direct. Without more capital, your chances of reversing this situation are minimal. Marcus left a trail, but pursuing him internationally costs money. A lot of money. How much time do we have? 3 weeks at most, before they start the debt enforcement processes. After that, the silence that followed was more eloquent than any word. Nathan knew what it meant. He would possibly lose his freedom in addition to everything else. There is an option, David hesitated, as if weighing his next words. A position in the administrative area of that restaurant chain you mentioned. It's not much, but it would help show good faith to the creditors. Nathan remembered the message from the Ocean Star restaurant and Emma, the waitress who had helped him on that disastrous night. The idea of working as a common employee, he who had always been the owner of his own business, was difficult to digest, but what choice did he have? I'll consider it, he finally replied. After David's departure, Nathan allowed himself another moment of self-pity before making a decision. He took his cell phone and called the number that was in the message from the restaurant. Ocean Star Restaurant, Emma speaking. The smooth, professional voice surprised him. Emma? This is Nathan Reynolds. I was there a few weeks ago. Of course, Mr. Reynolds. Glad you called, she replied with genuine enthusiasm that left him disconcerted. Are you still interested in the position we mentioned? To be honest, yes. My situation has changed drastically in the last few weeks. There was a small pause on the other end of the line. I understand. Can we talk in person tomorrow? At 10 a.m.? I'll be there. The next morning, Nathan headed to Jack's dealership before his meeting with Emma. The place displayed gleaming imported cars, symbols of the status he once possessed effortlessly. Jack received him with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Tall, tanned, and wearing an impeccable Italian suit, he emanated the kind of confidence that only money can buy. Nathan, glad you came, he said, guiding him to his private office. Coffee? Let's get straight to the point, Jack. In the office, decorated with photos of Jack alongside celebrities and politicians, Nathan felt diminished, especially when he noticed, discreetly placed on the table, a photo frame with a recent photo of Victoria. The car is worth about $380,000, began Jack, ignoring Nathan's look at the photo. But considering the depreciation and the current state of the market, I can offer $320,000. It's a generous offer. The car is new, Jack. It's worth at least $420,000. Under normal circumstances, maybe. But we all know you're not in a position to bargain, Nathan. Jack's smile now had a touch of cruelty. Victoria told me everything about your situation. The mention of her name made Nathan's blood boil. How long have you been together, Jack? Before or after she accepted my marriage proposal? Jack laughed, leaning back in his leather chair. Let's say we've always maintained a close friendship. Very close. Nathan stood up abruptly. Keep the car. The problem is that it's in my name and creditors will soon find it. Good luck explaining that to Victoria. As he left the dealership, Nathan felt a strange sense of liberation. He had lost almost everything, but as he left the car behind, he felt as if he was also abandoning the last ties that bound him to his old life. He arrived at the Ocean Star restaurant exactly at 10 a.m. During the day, the place had a different atmosphere, lighter, with natural light coming in through the large windows facing the sea. Emma was waiting for him at the reception, dressed in the restaurant's formal uniform, black pants, white shirt, and a burgundy vest with the discreet logo of the establishment. Good morning, Mr. Reynolds, she greeted him with a sincere smile. Thank you for coming. Nathan, please, he corrected her, returning the smile for the first time in days. Emma led him to a room at the back of the restaurant, where the general manager, a middle-aged man named Anthony, was waiting for them. The conversation was surprisingly direct. The restaurant needed an administrative assistant who could eventually help in the dining room on busy days. The salary was modest, but included meals and schedule flexibility. I know it's quite different from what you're used to, commented Anthony, after explaining the responsibilities of the position. But Emma spoke very highly of you. Nathan looked at her, surprised. What could she have said? They had only met once on the night of the disaster with Victoria. "You seem like someone who values dignity," explained Emma, as if reading his thoughts. "It's a rare quality these days." After the interview, Emma invited Nathan to have lunch at the restaurant as a courtesy of the house. During the meal, he was surprised by the ease of the conversation. Emma was 28 years old, had a degree in hotel administration, and had been working at the Ocean Star for 3 years. She had started as a waitress and now supervised all the service. "How did you end up here?" asked Nathan, genuinely curious about her trajectory. "I've always loved hospitality," she replied, her brown eyes shining with passion. "There's something special about creating moments for people, you know. A dinner can be just a meal, or it can be a memory someone will carry forever." Emma's simplicity and sincerity were refreshing after months of living with people like Victoria, and her friends always calculating the value of each interaction. "And you?" she asked. "How did you go from businessman to administrative assistant candidate?" Nathan hesitated. The story was painful and humiliating, but there was something in Emma's eyes that encouraged him to share. He told her everything: Marcus's betrayal, the debts, Victoria's abandonment, the loss of assets. He expected to see pity or judgment on her face, but found only understanding. "You know what I see, Nathan," she said after listening attentively. "A man who was tested in the worst possible way and still maintains his dignity. That's worth more than any bank account." Something inside Nathan warmed with those words. As simple as they were, they touched a truth he had forgotten during years of material success. "When can I start?" he asked with new determination. "Tomorrow, if you're available," smiled Emma. Nathan began his new life the next day. The first days were difficult. Learning a new system, adapting to the restaurant routine, dealing with suppliers. His hands, accustomed only to signing documents and typing emails, now also carried boxes, organized inventory, and occasionally helped serve tables when the movement was intense. The most surprising thing was realizing how Emma was respected and admired by everyone. From the temperamental chefs to the younger waiters, everyone treated her with deference, not for her position, but for her character. She knew each employee by name, knew their stories, their problems, their aspirations. One night, after hours, Nathan was helping close the restaurant when he found Emma on the terrace observing the sea. She held a glass of red wine, and there was another, full, on the table beside her. "I thought you might want to celebrate your first week," she said, pointing to the empty glass. "Thank you," he replied, joining her and taking the glass. "It's been enlightening." "In what sense?" "I never imagined I would work so hard for so little," he laughed without bitterness. "But I've also never felt so useful." Emma smiled, her face softly illuminated by the terrace lights. "You know what I've learned over the years, Nathan? That people are rarely who they appear to be. Some seem strong but crumble at the first obstacle. Others seem fragile but have an incredible inner strength." "And in which category do you put me?" he asked, half joking, half serious. Emma stared at him, her eyes penetrating as if they could see beyond the layers of protection he had built throughout his life. "I'm still deciding," she replied with a small, enigmatic smile. At the same moment, Nathan's cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. He answered, moving away a bit. "Nathan Reynolds?" asked an unknown male voice. "Yes, who's speaking?" "My name is Detective Andrew Morgan from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We found Marcus Lawson." Nathan's heart accelerated. The mention of his ex-partner's name brought a wave of contradictory emotions. "Where?" was all he could ask. "In Argentina. He tried to use one of the company's cards and was identified. We're working on extradition, but we need your cooperation to strengthen the case." "Anything you need," replied Nathan, feeling renewed hope. When he hung up, he realized that Emma was watching him with an expression difficult to decipher. For an instant it seemed that she already knew what the call was about, but the impression disappeared as quickly as it had arisen. "Good news?" she asked. "Maybe the beginning of them," replied Nathan, rejoining her in the contemplation of the nocturnal sea. What he didn't notice was the small sigh of relief that escaped Emma's lips, nor the way she discreetly sent a text message before putting her cell phone away again. In the days that followed, Nathan divided his time between work at the restaurant and meetings with the FBI. The case against Marcus was being meticulously built, and each new discovery revealed the extent of the betrayal. It had not just been a recent embezzlement, but a scheme planned over years, with accounts abroad and falsified documents. One afternoon, while organizing invoices in the restaurant office, Nathan received an unexpected visit. Victoria, impeccably, dressed and made up, entered as if she were still part of his life. "Nathan, we need to talk," she said without greeting him. He continued organizing the papers, without raising his eyes. "We have nothing to talk about, Victoria. It's about the car. Jack said you refused to sell it. The car is in my name. It will be used to pay creditors." Victoria approached, her expensive perfume invading the small office. "Nate," her voice softened, using the nickname that used to work when she wanted something. "I know I made a mistake. I got scared with everything that happened. We can start over." Nathan finally looked at her. Victoria was even more beautiful than he remembered, but now he could see through the physical beauty. He saw the manipulation in her eyes, the falsity in her smile. "Why the sudden interest, Victoria? I'm still broke, as your friend Jack likes to say." A blush of shame, or would it be anger, colored her cheeks. "Jack is an idiot, and I heard the police found Marcus, that you can recover part of the money." So that was it. The prospect of financial recovery had awakened her interest again. Nathan almost laughed at the predictability of the situation. "Even if I recover every penny, Victoria, we would never be together again." "Why not?" She seemed genuinely surprised, as if rejection were a strange concept to her. "Because now I know exactly who you are, and more importantly, I know who I am." At that moment, Emma entered the office with a stack of documents. She stopped upon seeing Victoria, and a look of recognition crossed her face. "Sorry, am I interrupting something?" asked Emma, her voice professional. "No, the lady was just leaving," replied Nathan, sustaining Victoria's furious gaze. "Is it her?" Victoria looked Emma up and down, with barely disguised disdain. "The waitress? Is this why you're working in this place? For her?" Nathan felt a sudden anger at the derogatory tone with which Victoria referred to Emma and the restaurant. "Emma has more integrity in her little finger than you'll ever have, Victoria. Now please, leave before I ask security to escort you out." Victoria paled, not accustomed to being treated so firmly by Nathan. She looked from one to the other, her mind clearly processing the new dynamic. "You'll regret this," she hissed before leaving, slamming the door hard enough to make the frames on the wall shake. An uncomfortable silence followed Victoria's tempestuous exit. Emma placed the documents on the desk and turned to leave. "Emma," called Nathan, making her stop. "Thank you." "For what?" she asked, turning to face him. "For helping me see what really matters." A soft smile curved her lips. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to find something worthwhile, Nathan." As she left, Nathan reflected on those words. It was true. He had lost almost everything: money, status, relationship, but was, somehow, finding a version of himself he had never known. A stronger, more authentic version. What he didn't know was that his journey of self-discovery was just beginning, and that the secrets behind his sudden downfall and Emma's constant presence were more complex than he could imagine. That night, in his small apartment at the back of the restaurant, accommodation offered by Anthony, when he learned that Nathan had been forced to sell his property to pay part of the debts, he looked at the starry sky through the window and felt, for the first time in weeks, that there might be a path to rebuild his life. Not as before, with empty luxuries and superficial relationships, but something more genuine, more true. What he didn't see was Emma from across the street, watching his window with an expression divided between guilt and determination, before entering a discreet car where a middle-aged man was waiting for her. "Is everything going according to plan?" asked the man. "Yes," she replied, looking one last time at the illuminated window, "but I'm beginning to question if we're doing the right thing." The man followed her gaze and sighed. "Remember why we started this, Emma. It's too late for doubts." Without alternatives, he accepted the humble job offered by the same waitress, working as a waiter. Although wounded in his pride, he saw in that opportunity a way to start over. While cleaning tables and serving dishes, the young woman, who had given him a hand, became his greatest ally. With simple gestures, a smile, a hot coffee, words of encouragement, she rekindled the flame of hope in his chest. Meanwhile, the ex-fiancée tried to maintain her luxurious lifestyle. It was then that a tempting offer emerged. A newly enriched businessman invited her to be his personal assistant, promising a generous salary, travel, and status. Without batting an eye, she accepted. But there was something she didn't know. That whole situation was part of a grand plan. 3. Months passed since Nathan began working at the Ocean Star restaurant. Autumn was coming to an end, bringing the first cold breezes of winter. The changes in nature mirrored the transformations in Nathan's life, from vibrant colors and intense heat to sobriety and introspection. On that Saturday morning, the restaurant was especially busy. A convention of businessmen from the real estate sector, ironically the same field in which Nathan used to operate, occupied the main hall. Among hurried waiters and demanding clients, Nathan coordinated the flow with an efficiency that surprised even Anthony, the general manager. "I've never seen anyone adapt so quickly," commented Anthony, observing how Nathan solved a problem with a duplicate reservation. "It's as if you were born for this." Nathan smiled, but his eyes betrayed a flash of melancholy. There were days when the transition still hurt. When he recognized some ex-client or business partner, he felt the weight of curious and, sometimes, condescending looks. Today was one of those days. "Table 15 special request," said Emma, approaching with a worried expression. "Jack Prescott and his companion." The name made Nathan's stomach contract. Jack, the man who now exhibited Victoria as a trophy around the city. "I can ask another waiter to serve them," suggested Emma, lightly touching his arm. "No," replied Nathan, straightening his shoulders. "I'll take care of it myself." As he approached the table, Nathan felt all the muscles in his body tense. Jack was impeccably dressed, as always, his Rolex shining under the restaurant lights. At his side was not Victoria, but a younger woman of foreign appearance. "Nathan Reynolds," exclaimed Jack with false cordiality. "I didn't expect to find you waiting tables." The woman looked curiously from one to the other, feeling the tension in the air. "Mr. Prescott, welcome to the Ocean Star," replied Nathan, his voice professional. "What can I serve you today?" Jack smiled, savoring the moment. "I'm surprised. I thought you would have already given up on this temporary job. After all, I heard that your ex-partner was found, and part of the money recovered." The mention of Marcus hit Nathan like an unexpected blow. How did Jack know about this? The information about the capture and potential extradition of Marcus was still not public. "Surprisingly, I discovered that I like it here," replied Nathan, maintaining his composure. "Our special today is fresh fish with caper and Sicilian. Lemon sauce, I recommend pairing it with the house white wine." "Always the diplomat," laughed Jack, clearly disappointed at not being able to provoke him. "2 glasses of champagne to start, and tell your supervisor that the service needs to improve. We've been waiting for 10 minutes. Nathan nodded and walked away, breathing deeply to control his anger. As he passed by the bar, Emma intercepted him. "Is everything okay?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. "He knows about Marcus," murmured Nathan. "How is that possible? The FBI guaranteed total discretion." A shadow crossed Emma's face, so fast that it could have been imagination. "He probably has contacts," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "You are at the top of the business world, Nathan. Information leaks." He nodded, not entirely convinced, but without time to delve deeper into the question. The night proceeded without further incidents, although Jack made a point of leaving, an excessively generous tip when leaving, in a clear gesture of humiliation. After closing the restaurant, Nathan found Emma on the terrace that had become their shared refuge in the last few weeks. She was already there, 2 glasses of wine prepared, as if she knew he would need to vent. He was trying to provoke me, said Nathan, accepting the glass she offered. And did he succeed? She asked, her eyes studying him with that intensity. That left him simultaneously uncomfortable and fascinated. Less than he expected, admitted Nathan. 3 months ago, I would have completely lost control. 3 months can change a person, or reveal who they really are. A comfortable silence established itself between them. It was one of the things that Nathan most appreciated about Emma, the ability to share silences without embarrassment. I have a surprise for you, she said finally, extending an envelope. Nathan opened it, confused. Inside there was a bus ticket to Newport and the reservation of a small cottage by the sea. What? You haven't taken a day off since you started here, explained Emma, and it coincides with my next day off too. I thought we could... She hesitated, suddenly insecure. You always mention how you miss the sea. Nathan looked at the documents, touched by the gesture. It wasn't just the trip itself, but the fact that she had paid attention to details about him, things he had mentioned casually in conversations. It's perfect, he replied, feeling a warmth in his chest that he hadn't experienced in a long time. But I can't accept that you pay for this. I didn't pay, she smiled. They're courtesies from a hotel partner of the restaurant. They were going to expire at the end of the month. There was something in the way she avoided his gaze that suggested to Nathan that it wasn't the whole truth, but he decided not to press. The gesture was genuine, regardless of how it had been arranged. Thank you, he said simply, covering her hand with his. The touch, as casual as it was significant, sent an electric current between them. For a moment, it seemed that time had stopped. Nathan realized how important Emma had become in his life, not just as a colleague or friend, but as someone who had rekindled something within him that he thought was lost. Emma, The moment was interrupted by her cell phone, which vibrated insistently. She looked at the screen and her face changed expression. I need to answer, she said, moving away quickly. Nathan observed her walk to the other side of the terrace, speaking in a low voice. There was a tension in her shoulders that didn't match the relaxed Emma of moments before. When she returned, something had changed. Is everything okay? Asked Nathan. Yes, just family matters, she replied, visibly uncomfortable. I need to leave earlier today. We're still on for the weekend. He nodded, feeling that there was more to that story, but respecting her privacy. See you tomorrow then, she said, picking up her purse and leaving hastily. Nathan remained on the terrace for some time longer, contemplating the city lights reflected in the sea. His instinct told him that there was something Emma wasn't telling, perhaps many things, but the same instinct that alerted him also made him trust her in a way he couldn't explain rationally. The next day, an atypically calm Friday at the EI restaurant, Nathan received a call from the FBI. Detective Andrew Morgan wanted to meet him urgently. They arranged a time after hours, in a discreet cafe near the waterfront. Detective Morgan was a man of imposing presence, tall, broad-shouldered, graying hair and penetrating blue eyes that seemed to analyze each reaction. Nathan found him already seated at a remote table, an untouched coffee in front of him. Mr. Reynolds, thank you for coming, said the detective, indicating the chair in front of him. Any news about Marcus? Asked Nathan, going straight to the point. Yes and no, replied Morgan, drumming his fingers on the table. We secured the extradition, but there are complications. What kind of complications? He wasn't alone. He had a partner, someone who helped him plan and execute the scam, someone who remains free. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. Who? The detective slid a folder across the table. That's what we're trying to figure out, and we believe you can help us. Nathan opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos showing Marcus in different locations, always accompanied by a hooded figure whose face never appeared clearly. I don't recognize this person, said Nathan, frustrated. How can I help? It's not through facial recognition that we expect your help, explained Morgan. It's through the pattern. This person had privileged access to your company, knew your routines, the bank passwords, everything. It has to be someone close. A terrible thought crossed Nathan's mind, Victoria. My ex-fiancée? We've already investigated. She doesn't have the technical capacity for this, although she benefited indirectly. We believe it's someone with specific knowledge in finance and technology. Nathan ran his fingers through his hair, trying to process the information. All trusted employees have been investigated, he continued. We found nothing, but there's something that intrigues me. What? The speed with which your life crumbled and was rebuilt. I don't believe in coincidences, Mr. Reynolds. The restaurant where you work, the waitress who helped you, even the capture of Marcus. Everything seems connected somehow. Nathan felt his blood freeze in his veins. Are you suggesting that Emma... The detective closed the folder abruptly. I'm not suggesting anything specific. I'm just asking you to keep your eyes open. The criminal we're looking for is meticulous, patient, and is very, very close to you. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. Nathan walked slowly back to the restaurant, his mind a whirlwind of contradictory thoughts. Could it be possible that Emma was involved somehow? The idea seemed absurd. She was the only person who extended a hand when everyone turned their backs. And yet, there were small details that didn't fit. The mysterious calls, the knowledge about subjects she shouldn't master, the way she appeared in his life exactly when everything was falling apart. Upon arriving at the restaurant, he found her in the office, organizing the payroll. She smiled when she saw him, that sincere smile that always made him question his doubts. How? Was the meeting with the police? She asked casually. Nathan hesitated for a second. How did you know I was with the police? Emma's smile faltered briefly. You mentioned it this morning, remember? When you asked to leave early. Had he asked? Nathan didn't remember, but the last few days had been confusing. He could easily have forgotten. Of course, he replied, forcing a smile. It was enlightening. Good news about Marcus? In part. There are still many pieces missing in the puzzle. Emma studied him for a moment, as if trying to read beyond his words. Sometimes the answers are right in front of us, she finally said. We just need to be willing to see them. The phrase hung in the air like an enigma. Nathan felt a shiver, uncertain if it was genuine advice or something more. Are we still going to Newport tomorrow? She asked, changing the subject. Yes, of course, he replied automatically. Great, her smile returned, luminous as always. It will be good to get away from all this for a day, don't you think? Nathan nodded, trying to ignore Detective Morgan's voice echoing in his mind. The criminal we're looking for is very, very close to you. The next morning, Nathan waited at the bus station with a small backpack. The bus to Newport would depart in 20 minutes, and there was no sign of Emma. He tried to call her several times, but all calls went to voicemail. When there were only 5 minutes left before departure, he received a message. Family emergency. Won't be able to go. Enjoy the trip anyway, you deserve the rest. We'll make it up to you when I get back. Emma. Nathan sat on a nearby bench, disappointed and confused. It was the second time that family emergencies had interrupted important moments between them. He looked at the ticket in his hand, considering his options. He could simply return to the restaurant and work, as he did every day, or he could go alone, take the time to reflect. The second option won. Perhaps a day away from everything, from the restaurant, the investigations, and yes, even from Emma, would give him the clarity he so needed. The cottage in Newport was modest but charming. A small wooden construction with a view of an almost deserted beach, separated from neighboring properties by dense vegetation. Nathan left his backpack in the room and walked to the sand, feeling the warm morning sun on his face. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to simply exist, without thinking about the past or the future. He spent hours swimming, walking on the beach, and reading a book he found on the cottage shelf. At dusk, he sat on the porch with a cold beer, watching the sun set on the horizon. It was then that he noticed the envelope discreetly placed under the door. His name was handwritten, in a calligraphy he immediately recognized. Emma. With trembling fingers, he opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and several photographs. The first showed Emma, younger, next to a man in a police uniform. The second, Marcus entering a commercial building. The third, Nathan and Victoria in his old apartment, clearly taken from some external observation point. Feeling his heart accelerate, he began to read the letter. "Nathan, when you read this, I'll already be far away. I know I have many explanations to give, and this is my cowardly way of doing so. My real name is Emma Morgan. Yes, Morgan, the same last name as Detective Andrew Morgan, who is not only my superior at the FBI, but also my father. 3 years ago, we began investigating a network of money laundering and real estate fraud. The trail led us to Marcus Lawson, your ex-partner. But Marcus was just a piece of a larger puzzle. We needed to know who else was involved, and that included investigating everyone around you, including you. At first, we believed you might be complicit. The plan was simple: ruin your financial life, observe your reactions, and see if you would resort to criminal contacts to rise again. I was assigned to approach and monitor your steps. The restaurant, the coincidence of our meeting, the job offer, everything was meticulously planned. Even Marcus's betrayal was orchestrated by us, with all your money safe in accounts blocked by justice. But something unexpected happened. The more I observed you, the more I realized that you were exactly what you appeared to be: an honest man who trusted the wrong people. Your reaction to losing everything, the dignity with which you faced humiliation, the determination to start over, showed me a character that I had never found in anyone before. And then I committed the most serious mistake for an agent. I fell in love with the target of the investigation. I spent months divided between my duty and my feelings. I tried to distance myself several times, remember the family emergencies, but always came back, unable to complete my mission and equally unable to abandon you. Yesterday, we finally discovered Marcus's true partner, Jack Prescott. He is not just a luxury car salesman, but the financier of an extensive fraud network. His interest in Victoria was never romantic. She is just a means to monitor your steps and find out how much you know. The operation to arrest him happens today. I can't risk your safety, which is why I sent you away. The cottage is safe. It belongs to the FBI. Stay until tomorrow, when everything will be resolved. As for your money, all of it will be returned. Your innocence is proven, and your reputation will be restored. My father will personally take care of this. I don't expect your forgiveness. Betrayal, even with good intentions, is still betrayal. I just want you to know that, amid all the lies, what I feel for you is the only absolute truth. Goodbye, Nathan. Find the happiness you deserve. With love, Emma. Nathan let the letter fall on the table, stunned by the revelations. Everything had been a farce: his bankruptcy, Marcus's betrayal, even his job at the restaurant, and Emma. She was never who she claimed to be. And yet, amid the anger and confusion, a strange calm enveloped him. The pieces finally fit together. The mysterious phone calls, the knowledge about subjects she shouldn't know, the coincidence of her appearance when he needed help most. He looked at the photographs again. The image of Emma next to her father showed a determined young woman with that same intense look that so intrigued him. The difference was that now he understood what was behind that look. It wasn't just interest or affection, but the conflict of someone divided between duty and feelings. He took his cell phone, seized by an impulse to call her, to hear her voice. One last time. He stopped upon realizing that he didn't even know if the number he had was really hers. How many more lies had been told? What else didn't he know about the woman he was falling in love with? Night fell over the beach, bringing with it a cold breeze that gave him goosebumps. Nathan entered the cottage and lay on the bed, staring at the wooden ceiling. Sleep would not come easily tonight, not with so many thoughts swirling in his. Till at some point during the early morning, his cell phone rang. The display showed unknown number. With his heart racing, he answered. "Nathan?" Emma's voice sounded different on the phone, more formal, as if she were talking to a stranger. "Why did you call?" he asked, trying to keep his voice firm. "To tell you it's done. Jack was arrested an hour ago. Victoria is also in custody, although she'll probably be released soon. She didn't have complete knowledge of his activities. And Marcus? He confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. Your name is completely cleared, Nathan. The blocked funds will be released in the next few days. A heavy silence established itself between them. You read my letter. It wasn't a question. I did. And? Nathan closed his eyes, fighting against the whirlwind of emotions in his chest. I don't know what to say, Emma, or whatever your real name is. It is Emma indeed, she replied, her voice betraying a vulnerability he rarely heard. That at least is true. What else was true? The question escaped harsher than he intended. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Everything that matters, she finally replied. What I felt, what I feel, is real, Nathan. He wanted to believe. Part of him already believed. But the wound of manipulation was too recent. I need time, he said, to process all this. I understand, she replied, and he could hear the effort to maintain her composure. Tomorrow morning an officer will come to pick you up. He'll take you to the bank where your access to the accounts will be restored. Your life can go back to normal. Normal. The word sounded strange. What was normal now? Going back to the business world, resuming his old life as if nothing had happened. After everything he had lived, after everything he had learned about himself, about the value of honest work and the importance of genuine connections. And what about you? He asked. What happens now? I'll be transferred, she replied, and... For the first time he heard a tremor in her voice. It's the protocol when an agent becomes emotionally involved with a target, probably to the north of the country. So we'll never see each other again. It's better this way, Nathan. You deserve a fresh start without complications. He wanted to say more, wanted to express the confusion of feelings that tore him apart, the betrayal, the anger, but also the gratitude for her having appeared in his life, for having helped him discover a strength he didn't know he possessed. Goodbye. Emma, was all he managed to say. Goodbye, Nathan. The call ended, leaving only the silence of the night and the distant sound of waves breaking on the beach. Nathan remained awake until dawn, contemplating not just the past he had lost, but the future that now opened before him, a future where he would have to decide who he really wanted to be. The sun rose over the sea, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. A new page was turning in his life. It remained to be seen what he would write on it. In a tense reunion at the restaurant where he now worked, she openly mocked him. What she didn't expect was the revelation. He had never lost anything. The bankruptcy had been a meticulously planned staging to test her loyalty. The businessman who had hired her was an accomplice in the plan. The check she had received was fake. The promising job was nothing but a trap to reveal her true character. Shocked, she tried to justify herself, claiming that she had been pressured by circumstances. But he, serene, just said, "True love doesn't abandon at the first stumble. Yours was the first to run away." As he turned his back on her, he ended any connection with that past of illusions forever. The story, however, still held a new twist. 6 months passed since that night in Newport. Winter had given way to spring, which in turn announced the imminent arrival of summer. The transformations of nature seemed to accompany the changes in Nathan's life. With his money recovered and name cleared, he could have resumed his old life, returned to the real estate market, bought a luxurious penthouse, acquired a new imported car. But something fundamental had changed within him. Instead of reconstituting his business empire, Nathan made surprising choices. First, he bought the Ocean Star restaurant, which was for sale since Anthony decided to retire. Then he created a foundation to help small entrepreneurs who had been victims of financial fraud. Finally, he moved to a modest apartment with a view of the sea. Comfortable, but far from the ostentatious luxury he once considered indispensable. On that sunny Sunday morning, Nathan walked along the beach, observing families enjoying the day. Children built sandcastles, elderly couples walked hand in hand by the water. Young people played beach volleyball. Everyday scenes that would have seemed banal to him before, but now carried a particular beauty. His cell phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was David, his lawyer and now close friend. "I have news about Victoria," said David without preamble. Nathan stopped walking, feeling a familiar uneasiness. After her temporary arrest and subsequent release, Victoria had disappeared from the radar. No social media posts, no appearances at socialite events, a disappearance that intrigued Nathan less for personal interest and more for curiosity about her fate. What happened? "She's back in the city, and from what I've heard, completely broke. Jack hid the money well before being arrested, and she couldn't access anything. She's living with her mother in a remote neighborhood." "How did you find this out?" "She contacted me." The hesitation in David's voice was palpable. "She wants a chance to talk to you. Said she has something important to reveal." Nathan sighed, running his hand through his hair, which he now kept shorter. Victoria belonged to a closed chapter of his life. What could she want now? "I'm not interested, David." She mentioned Emma. The name hit Nathan like an unexpected wave. 6 months without news, without knowing where she was or what she was doing. 6 months trying to understand his own feelings in relation to a woman who had entered his life as an undercover agent and left leaving indelible marks. What? "Does she know about Emma?" "She wouldn't say. Insists she needs to speak in person." Nathan looked at the horizon where the sky met the sea in a perfect line. Part of him wanted to leave the past buried. Another part, however, yearned for answers, for a closure he had never really had with Emma. "All right," he finally decided. "Where and when?" "Tonight at the restaurant," she suggested dinner. "At the Ocean Star?" Nathan couldn't hide his surprise. "Why there?" "Said it was the most appropriate place for what she has to say." The conversation ended with Nathan promising to be at the restaurant at 8 p.m. As he resumed his walk, he couldn't help but feel that something important was about to happen. Fate, which had so often surprised him in the last few months, seemed to be preparing another of its twists. The Ocean Star restaurant was almost empty that Sunday night, exactly as Nathan had planned when defining the reduced operating hours, on weekends. Only 3 tables occupied, all in areas distant from each other to ensure privacy. The environment was illuminated mainly by candles and small lamps that created an intimate atmosphere enhanced by the view of the nocturnal sea through the large windows. Nathan arrived half an hour before the agreed time. He wore dark dress pants and a blue shirt without a tie, a more relaxed version of his old corporate look. He greeted the employees by name, exchanging brief words with each one. This proximity to the team was something he cultivated with pride since he had assumed ownership of the restaurant. At 8 p.m. sharp, Victoria entered. At first glance, she seemed the same stunning woman he had known, impeccable blonde hair, perfect makeup, elegant posture. But a closer look revealed subtle changes. The dress, although elegant, was not designer. The jewels had been replaced by more discreet pieces, and her eyes, once confident and sometimes arrogant, now carried an unprecedented vulnerability. Nathan received her with formal politeness, leading her to a reserved table on the terrace, the same place where he used to talk with Emma after hours. "You bought the restaurant," commented Victoria, looking around with curiosity. "I didn't expect that from you." "I didn't either," admitted Nathan, settling in front of her. "Life takes us on surprising paths." A waiter approached to take the orders. Victoria hesitated before the menu, clearly calculating prices, a behavior that Nathan had never witnessed during their relationship. "Order whatever you want," he said, noticing her discomfort. "It's on me." "Thank you," she murmured, and the gratitude in her voice sounded genuine. After placing their orders, a light appetizer for both and only water for Victoria, who explained she was economizing, an uncomfortable silence established itself between them. "So," began Nathan, deciding to go straight to the point. "David mentioned that you had something important to tell me. Something about Emma." Victoria adjusted herself in the chair as if gathering courage. "Before talking about her, I need to say something about myself." Her eyes met Nathan's with an unexpected intensity. "I want to apologize, not just for the way I acted when you were in difficulties, but for everything, for never being the person you deserved." The sincerity of the declaration caught Nathan by surprise. He expected manipulation, perhaps an attempt to regain his trust now that he was financially stable again. He didn't expect a genuine apology. "Why now, Victoria?" "Because I lost everything," she replied simply. "Not just the money and the status, but my dignity, my self-respect. Jack used me just as I used you. I guess that's what they call karma." Nathan observed her attentively, looking for signs of the old Victoria, the skillful manipulator who knew exactly what to say to get what she wanted. But what he saw was a broken woman trying to rebuild herself from the pieces. "I accept your apologies," he finally said, "but that doesn't explain why you mentioned Emma." Victoria took a sip of water before continuing. "After Jack was arrested, I was exhaustively interrogated by the FBI. One of the agents, Detective Morgan, showed me photos and documents to find out how much I knew about the illegal business. And what does this have to do with Emma? During one of those interrogations, I saw a photo on his desk. It was him with a younger woman wearing a police uniform. I recognized her immediately. It was the waitress from here, the one who was always with you." Nathan's heart accelerated. The confirmation that Emma was really the detective's daughter was something that part of him still doubted, despite the letter. "The detective noticed that I recognized her," continued Victoria. "He started asking questions about how I knew her. I was confused. I didn't understand why that seemed so important to him." "And what did he say?" "Nothing directly. But after that day, the tone of the interrogations changed. It became more personal. He wanted to know details about you, about us, things that seemed irrelevant to the investigation." Nathan remembered the meeting with Detective Morgan in that cafe months ago. The man seemed genuinely concerned about Nathan's safety, but there was something more in his interest, something personal. "In my last session," Victoria continued, "he finally revealed something. He said that his daughter had committed the biggest mistake an agent could make, becoming emotionally involved with the target of an investigation." The words confirmed what Emma's letter had already revealed, but hearing them from Victoria, who had no reason to lie about this, made everything more real. "How long ago was this?" asked Nathan, trying to keep his voice steady. "About 2 months ago." Victoria hesitated before continuing. "There's more, Nathan. Something I think you should know." At that moment, the waiter returned with the appetizers. Nathan barely noticed the plate placed in front of him, his attention entirely focused on Victoria. "What else?" he insisted, as soon as the waiter moved away. She wasn't transferred. The revelation hit Nathan like an electric shock. "What do you mean in the letter?" she said. "I know what she said," interrupted Victoria. "But according to Detective Morgan, she resigned from the FBI, completely, turned in her badge and disappeared." "Disappeared?" The concern in Nathan's voice was palpable. "What do you mean?" "Not literally, just vanished from police life." The detective was furious, said she threw away a promising career. "And the strangest thing, he blamed you for it." Nathan leaned back in his chair, trying to process the information. Emma had left the FBI. Why? And if she wasn't working as an agent somewhere distant, where could she be? What could she be doing? "Why are you telling me this, Victoria?" he finally asked. "What is your interest in all this?" She sighed, setting her fork aside. "When you lost everything, or thought you had lost, I abandoned you without hesitation. I preferred a man I barely knew just because he promised to maintain my lifestyle. And look how I ended up," she gestured to herself, a sad smile on her lips. "Meanwhile, this waitress, this undercover agent who entered your life to investigate, you ended up giving up everything, for you." The realization of what Victoria was insinuating made Nathan swallow hard. "You don't know if it was for me," he argued, more to himself than to her. "Detective Morgan knows," replied Victoria. "Simply, and he hates you for it." A heavy silence established itself between them, broken only by the distant sounds of cutlery and conversations from the other tables. "There's one more thing," said Victoria, hesitating. "Something I discovered. By chance, and that may be the real reason why I wanted to meet you today." "What?" "She's here, somewhere in this city. I saw her 3 days ago, in a cafe downtown. She was different. Shorter hair, simple clothes. But I'm sure it was her." Nathan's heart raced. Emma was in the city. All this time she was so close. "Did you talk to her?" he asked, unable to hide the anxiety in his voice. "I didn't have the courage," admitted Victoria. "But she saw me. Our eyes met for a second, before she turned and left quickly." "And you didn't follow her? Didn't find out where she was going?" "I didn't think I had that right," replied Victoria, with an honesty that surprised them both. "But I thought you should know, that you deserved the chance to find her if that's what you want." Nathan stared at her, trying to understand her motivations. The Victoria he had known would never do something like this, would never facilitate the path for him to find another woman. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice softer now. Victoria held his gaze for a long moment before answering. "Because losing everything taught me the value of what really matters. I never loved you, Nathan, not the way you deserved. But I think she does." That night marked a strange reconciliation. Not a romantic restart, but the definitive closure of a chapter that needed to be concluded with dignity. Victoria and Nathan talked for hours, not as resentful ex-fiancés, but as two people who shared a past and had learned valuable, albeit painful, lessons. When the night came to an end and Nathan accompanied her to the exit, Victoria hesitated before saying goodbye. "There's a social project downtown," she said, avoiding his gaze. "A kind of restaurant school for young people from underprivileged communities. That's where I saw her." "Thank you, Victoria," replied Nathan, lightly touching her shoulder. "I hope you find your way." "I hope so too," she smiled, a smile without the artificial brightness of before, but with a new sincerity. "Good luck, Nathan." After Victoria's departure, Nathan remained in the empty restaurant, contemplating the nocturnal sea through the terrace window. His emotions were a whirlwind: surprise at Victoria's apparently genuine transformation, shock at the revelation that Emma had left the FBI, and a cautious hope upon knowing that she could be so close. The question that tormented him was, should he look for her? She had chosen to disappear from his life, after all. Perhaps she wanted a complete fresh start, without reminders of the past, including him. Or perhaps, as Victoria suggested, she had abdicated her career because of the feelings she nurtured for him. The next day, unable to concentrate on work, Nathan decided to investigate the restaurant school mentioned by Victoria. A quick internet search revealed a project called Flavors and Futures, inaugurated just 4 months ago. The description was exactly what Victoria had mentioned: a place that offered training in gastronomy and hospitality to young people from vulnerable communities, functioning as a restaurant open to the public during lunch and dinner. The website didn't show photos of the team, only of the students and the space, an old renovated warehouse with simple but welcoming decoration. The idea that Emma could be involved with such a project made perfect sense. It combined her passion for hospitality and her desire to make a difference. Without thinking twice, Nathan took the car and drove to the address listed. Flavors and Futures was in an area of the city that was being revitalized. Old industrial sheds transformed into cultural and gastronomic spaces, attracting a diverse public. Upon arrival, he found the restaurant school busy for a Monday lunch. Uniformed young people, most appearing to be between 16 and 20 years old, circulated among the tables with contagious energy and enthusiasm. The food was simple but well presented, with a menu that valued local ingredients. Nathan chose a discreet table in the corner, from where he could observe the entire environment. His heart accelerated every time someone came out of the kitchen or entered through the back door. He ordered the dish of the day from a young waiter who, although clearly inexperienced, served him with genuine attention. "Is this your first time here, sir?" asked the young man while serving water. "Yes," replied Nathan, trying to sound casual. "I heard good things about the project. Who is responsible?" "Ms. Emma," replied the young man with an enthusiastic smile. "She was from the police, You know, but she gave it all up to set up this place for us." An incredible person. Nathan's heart almost jumped out of his chest. Is she here today? Oh, she comes every day. The waiter looked at the clock. But she only arrives after 2. She's giving a lecture at a school. Nathan thanked him for the information and decided to wait. He ate slowly, observing the dynamics of the place. It was impressive how the young people, many clearly coming from challenging contexts, worked with dedication and purpose. Someone had inspired those teenagers, given them a chance and a direction. And from what the waiter had said, that someone was Emma. At 2:15 p.m., the back door opened. Nathan felt the air escape from his lungs when he saw her enter. Emma was different, the brown hair now shoulder-length, the face without makeup, wearing simple jeans and a white shirt with the Flavors and Futures logo. But her eyes, those intense eyes that had captivated him since their first meeting, remained the same. She didn't see him immediately. She was busy talking to an older woman, probably the chef responsible for the kitchen, and checking something on a clipboard. The young people greeted her with respect and familiarity at the same time, some stopping to show her something or ask questions, which she answered with attention and patience. Nathan just observed, without moving. There was a serenity in Emma that he had never seen before, as if she were finally at peace with herself. He wondered if he had the right to disturb this peace, to reopen wounds that might finally be healed. That's when she raised her eyes and saw him. Time seemed to freeze. The clipboard almost slipped from her hands, and Nathan could see, even at a distance, how she held her breath. For a terrible instant, he thought she would turn around and flee. But then, after what seemed like an eternity, she handed the clipboard to one of the young people and walked slowly toward him. "Nathan," she said, as she stopped in front of his table, his name pronounced as if it were both a question and a statement. "Hi, Emma," he replied, standing up. "Or should I say, Agent Morgan?" A sad smile curved her lips. "Just Emma now. I'm not an agent anymore." The two stood in silence, studying each other mutually, absorbing the changes and recognizing what remained the same. "May I sit?" she finally asked. "Please." She settled in front of him, restless hands on the table. "How did you find me?" she asked, going straight to the point, as she always did. "Victoria." The surprise on Emma's face was genuine. "Victoria?" she told. "You about this place?" "Yes, we met yesterday. She also mentioned that you left the FBI." Emma looked away, observing the movement of the restaurant. "We no longer matched," she said simply. "Why?" She turned to face him again, a renewed determination in her eyes. "You know why, Nathan. It's in the letter I left in Newport. I want to hear it from you, now, without letters, without intermediaries." Emma took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "Because I could no longer be the agent they needed me to be. Because each new case, each disguise, each lie, everything reminded me of what I did to you, and of what I felt for you." "Felt in the past?" "Feel," she corrected, holding his gaze. "Present. Continuous." Nathan's heart accelerated. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in his mind, imagined what he would say, how he would act. But now before her, all the planned words seemed inadequate. "Why didn't you look for me after leaving the police?" he asked. "Why did you disappear?" "Because I thought you would hate me, that you would never forgive me for the manipulation, for the lies." She made a gesture encompassing the restaurant. "I started this project as a form of redemption, of doing something meaningful after so much time deceiving people, even if they were criminals." "The lines blur, Nathan. At first you were also a suspect for us. If I could manipulate an innocent man so easily, what kind of person did that make me?" Emma's brutal honesty had always been one of her most striking qualities, realized Nathan. Even when she lied about her identity, there was an authenticity in her way of being that transcended the disguise. "This place is amazing, Emma," he said, slightly changing the course of the conversation. "These young people clearly admire you." "They saved me," she replied with a small smile. When I no longer knew who I was or what I wanted from life, I found purpose in teaching them what I know. Ironically, police training is useful here. Discipline, teamwork, attention to details. And your father, how did he react to your decision? A shadow crossed Emma's face. We haven't spoken for months. He sees my departure as betrayal and weakness, and he blames you for it. Victoria mentioned that. She's different from what I remembered, commented Emma with genuine curiosity. I think we've all changed, replied Nathan. Some events have the power to completely transform who we are, to reorient our priorities. How have you changed, Nathan? She asked, leaning slightly forward. Besides buying a restaurant, something I never imagined you would do. Nathan smiled, thinking about how to respond. I learned that building something meaningful is more important than accumulating possessions, that genuine connections are worth more than networks of contacts, and that sometimes, he paused, meeting her eyes, sometimes people deserve a second chance, even when they've made mistakes. The implicit meaning of his words didn't go unnoticed. Emma swallowed hard, a rare vulnerability in her gaze. Some lies are unforgivable, Nathan. Perhaps, but others are just detours on the way to a greater truth. One of the young waiters approached timidly, interrupting the moment. Ms. Emma, sorry, but the school group just arrived for the guided tour. Thank you, Miguel. Tell them I'll be there in a minute. The boy moved away and Emma turned her attention back to Nathan. I need to go, she said with evident reluctance. I know, he replied, taking a business card from his pocket and sliding it across the table. My new number is there, and the address of the Ocean Star, which I imagine you know well. She took the card, her fingers briefly brushing his. I don't know if we should... Friday, 8 p.m., interrupted Nathan, standing up. Table on the terrace, view of the sea. Like in the old days, if you want to show up, I'll be there. He left some bills on the table, enough to cover the meal and a generous tip. Before leaving, he leaned in and whispered near her ear. And this time, no family emergencies, okay? The comment drew a small smile from Emma, illuminating her face in a way that Nathan had missed during those 6 long months. No emergencies, she promised. Nathan left Flavors and Futures with a lighter heart than it had been in a long time. He wasn't sure if Emma would appear on Friday. He didn't know if they could overcome the complex past they shared. But for the first time since he read that letter in Newport, he felt that there was a real possibility of a new beginning. What he didn't see, as he got into his car, was the middle-aged man who had observed everything from inside a vehicle parked across the street. Detective Andrew Morgan had watched the meeting with a somber expression, his fingers nervously tapping on the steering wheel. When Nathan left, the detective picked up his cell phone and dialed a number. It's Morgan, he said when someone answered. I need you to investigate someone. Nathan Reynolds. I want to know everything about him in the last 6 months, every move, every business, every person he met with. He hung up without waiting for a response, his eyes fixed on the entrance of the restaurant school where his daughter had just disappeared. The game hadn't ended, at least not for him. And if Nathan Reynolds thought he could simply resume his life with Emma, he was very wrong. Friday came with a torturous slowness for Nathan. With each passing day, he alternated between hope and anxiety, wondering if Emma would really appear. He tried to distract himself with work at the restaurant, with meetings for his foundation, with anything that would prevent his thoughts from constantly returning to the meeting at Flavors and Futures. At 7:30 p.m. that night, he was on the terrace of the Ocean Star, personally checking every detail. The most remote table, with a privileged view of the sea, was prepared with candles, discreet flowers, and the best champagne they had. Not an ostentation, just the care of someone who wanted to create a special moment. The minutes dragged on. 7:45, 7:55, 8:05. With each moment that passed beyond the scheduled time, Nathan felt hope diminish. Perhaps she had reflected better and decided it wasn't worth reopening the past. Perhaps her father had convinced her that Nathan was a bad influence in her life. At 8:15, when he was already considering the meeting a failure, he saw her. Emma was entering through the main door, wearing a simple but elegant dress, her hair loose framing her face. Nathan felt the air escape from his lungs. She was stunning in her simplicity, but what impressed him most was the determination in her eyes, as if she had fought against herself to be there. He stood up, indicating the prepared table. She saw him and walked in his direction, the candlelight reflecting on her face as she approached. "I thought you wouldn't come," he said when she reached the table. "I thought so too," admitted Emma with a small smile. "I changed clothes 3 times and almost gave up on the way." "Why didn't you give up?" "Because some questions deserve answers, and some chapters need to be properly closed or continued." Nathan pulled out the chair for her, a chivalrous gesture that contrasted with the palpable tension between them. When he sat down across from her, it felt as if they were suspended in time. No longer the ruined businessman and the undercover agent, but simply a man and a woman trying to find a path through the complexity of their feelings. The night progressed like a careful dance. They talked about the months they had spent apart, about the changes in their lives, about the projects each had developed. With each word exchanged, each look, each smile, the layers of protection they had built around themselves were dissolving. It was only after dessert, when they were sharing a glass of wine under the starry sky, that Nathan finally asked the question that had been tormenting him since their reunion. "Why did you give up everything, Emma? Your career, your relationship with your father? Why?" She contemplated the sea for a long moment before answering. "Because I discovered that I could no longer live in a world of lies, even if for a good cause. The operation against Marcus and Jack was my last mission, and when it ended I realized that a part of me had died in the process." She turned her gaze to Nathan. The part that could separate duty from feelings, the part that saw people as targets, not as complete human beings with flaws and virtues. "And I awakened that in you. You made me question everything I believed in," she admitted. "Seeing you lose everything and still maintain your dignity, your humanity. It was a lesson I didn't expect to learn during an investigation." Nathan extended his hand across the table, a silent offer. After a moment of hesitation, Emma intertwined her fingers with his. "You still haven't answered my question from that day in Newport," she said softly. "Do you forgive me for everything?" Nathan gently squeezed her hand, feeling the texture of her skin, the warmth that emanated from it. "There's nothing to forgive, Emma. You were doing your job. And in the process, you saved me not only from criminals, but from a life that didn't bring me true happiness." "A diplomatic answer," she observed with a small smile. "Then let me be more direct," replied Nathan, leaning forward. "Yes, I forgive you, and more than that, I'm grateful for what happened. Because if it weren't for that setup, for that night when you paid my bill, for all the theater that followed, I would never have known the real Emma, and I would never have discovered what really matters in life." Her eyes shone with contained tears, her hand squeezing his more tightly. "And what really matters, Nathan? True connections, purpose, the ability to start over, even when everything seems lost." He paused, holding her gaze. "And love. The kind of love that transcends the roles we play, the facades we build." The word hung between them like a promise. Emma felt her breath falter, the final wall protecting her heart, crumbling before Nathan's raw honesty. "We still have many obstacles," she murmured, but without releasing his hand. "My father—" "One problem at a time," interrupted Nathan gently. "Today we're here. You and I, without disguises, without hidden agendas. Isn't that enough to start?" Emma's response didn't come in words. Slowly she stood up and walked around the table, stopping beside him. Nathan rose to face her, their bodies close enough to feel each other's warmth. "No lies from now on," she whispered, her eyes fixed on his. "Just the truth, no matter how difficult it may be." "Just the truth," he agreed, and then, finally, closed the distance between them. The kiss was soft initially, almost hesitant, as if both were relearning each other's language. But soon it deepened, carrying the weight of everything they had gone through, everything they had lost and found, everything they could still build together. When they separated, they remained with their foreheads touching, breaths intertwined in the night air. "You know what's funny?" murmured Nathan, a smile playing on his lips. "After everything, I ended up falling in love with the only woman who tried to ruin me professionally." Emma laughed, the sound light and genuine echoing on the empty terrace. "And I with the only man I targeted who ended up hitting my heart." Embraced under the stars with the sea as a witness, they sealed a silent pact of honesty and new beginning. The past, with all its complications, would not be forgotten, but would serve as a foundation for something new, something built not with luxury or power, but with the raw and imperfect truth of who they had become. What they didn't know was that from across the street, Detective Andrew Morgan observed everything with an inscrutable expression. In his hands, an envelope with information that could change everything again. Information about Nathan that not even Emma knew. For a long moment, the detective contemplated the embracing couple, his gaze divided between anger and a reluctant understanding. Finally, with a deep sigh, he tore the envelope into pieces and threw them in the nearest trash can. Some battles, he realized, weren't worth the price of victory, especially when the price was the happiness of his only daughter. As he walked away into the night, the echo of a truth resonated in his mind. Sometimes, love wasn't just about finding the right person, but about becoming the right person, even if the path to it was paved with mistakes, losses, and eventually, redemption. A year passed since that night on the terrace of the Ocean Star. Spring had arrived again, bringing renewal after a winter of transformations. Flavors and Futures was thriving, with a waiting list for new students and recognition from food critics. Next to it, the Ocean Star maintained its tradition of excellence, now with a wing dedicated to charitable events for the foundation created by Nathan. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, the restaurant school was closed for a special event. Tables were arranged in the inner garden, decorated with wildflowers and delicate lights that would create a magical atmosphere at nightfall. Nathan nervously adjusted his tie in front of the improvised mirror in Emma's office. "It's perfect," said David, his lawyer and now close friend, observing him with a smile. "Stop fidgeting or you'll misalign everything." "I never thought I'd be so nervous," admitted Nathan, running his hand through his hair. "It's normal. It's not every day that a man gets married." A light knock on the door interrupted the conversation. To Nathan's surprise, it was Detective Andrew Morgan who entered, impeccably dressed in a dark suit. "May I speak with you for a moment?" asked the detective, his tone softer than usual. David discreetly left, leaving the two men alone. A tense silence established itself before Morgan finally spoke. "I'd like you to know that my presence here today wasn't easy," he began, the words carefully chosen. "But Emma is my only daughter, and her happiness is what really matters to me." Nathan nodded, respecting the difficulty of that moment. "Thank you for being here, Detective. It means a lot to her." "And to you?" asked Morgan, studying him attentively. "To me as well, because her family is now part of my family." The detective's eyes softened slightly. "Take good care of her," he said simply, extending his hand. "With my life," promised Nathan, shaking it firmly. On the other side of the garden, in a room improvised as a dressing room, Emma contemplated her reflection in the mirror. The simple but elegant dress, flowers in her loose hair, the glow of happiness in her eyes. A gentle knock on the door announced her father. Upon seeing her, he stopped, visibly moved. "You are beautiful," he said, his voice thick with emotion, in a way that Emma had rarely witnessed. "Thank you for being here," she replied, nervously adjusting a lock of hair. "I know it wasn't an easy decision." "It wasn't," he admitted, approaching. "But maybe I was wrong about him, about you two." "That's almost a miracle coming from you," she joked, easing the tension. Morgan smiled, a rare gesture that completely transformed his severe face. "Are you ready?" he asked, offering his arm. "More than ever." The ceremony was simple and moving. Under the sky that was beginning to show the first stars, Nathan waited at the improvised altar. When Emma appeared, led by her father, time seemed to stop. The young people from Flavors and Futures formed a sort of honor guard, their faces shining with admiration for the mentors who had changed their lives. Among the guests, faces that told the story of transformation of both. Anthony, the ex-manager of the Ocean Star, David and his wife, the employees of both restaurants, and, surprisingly, Victoria, accompanied by a university professor who had met her through volunteer work. The vows were exchanged with genuine emotion, words that didn't need ornaments because they carried the truth of two people who had found each other in the most unexpected moments of their lives. "I promise to love you without disguises," said Nathan, his voice firm despite the emotion. "Without calculations, without conditions. In prosperity and in adversity, because we've known both." "I promise to be by your side with absolute honesty," replied Emma, tears shining in her eyes. "Choosing you every day, not for what you have, but for the man you are." The celebration that followed was cheerful and relaxed. The food, prepared by the students under the supervision of the chefs from both restaurants, was a feast that mixed sophistication and simplicity. The music, the dances, the toasts, everything reflected the extraordinary journey that had united those two souls. At some point, Nathan and Emma found themselves apart from the crowd, observing the party from a quiet corner of the garden. "Happy?" he asked, embracing her by the waist. "Complete," she replied, leaning against his chest. "Who would have thought that a trap to test your character would end up capturing me too?" Nathan laughed softly, kissing the top of her head. "You know what impresses me most?" he commented, observing the guests. "How each person here represents a part of our story, even Victoria." "Life is circular," philosophized Emma. "People enter our lives for reasons we only understand much later." At that moment, Detective Morgan approached, offering 2 glasses of champagne. "A toast to the most unlikely couple I've ever known," he said, with a reluctant but genuine smile. "And to the most stubborn father," completed Emma, accepting the glass. "And to the family we're building," added Nathan, raising his glass. "All of us." The 3 toasted under the stars, sealing not just the union of 2 people, but the reconciliation of a complex past with a promising future. Later, when the party was beginning to wind down, Nathan pulled Emma for a slow dance to the sound of soft music. As they twirled around the illuminated garden, he whispered in her ear, "Thank you for showing me that true wealth is in the people we choose to love and who love us back, not in the things we possess. And thank you for teaching me that even the best constructed masks don't resist the power of true love," she replied, looking into his eyes. Thus, they rebuilt their lives side by side, now guided by the certainty that no gold could be worth more than the truth. He tested his girlfriend and discovered the saddest truth, but also discovered the beauty of starting over, this time with true love by his side. Dear listeners, we hope that Nathan and Emma's story has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here, clicking on the left. If you liked this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the surprising twists of the heart. Don't miss our next content. We'll be waiting for you in the comments.